forgotten festivals that were just mass chaos in the torch-lit amphitheaters and crowded marketplaces of ancient civilizations, where the boundaries between celebration and catastrophe dissolved into wild spectacles of human excess that would horrify modern sensibilities. There developed some of history's most extraordinary and dangerous festival traditions, elaborate public celebrations that transformed entire cities into theaters of absolute chaos, where normal social rules were completely abandoned, laws were suspended, and thousands of participants engaged in behaviors so extreme and destructive that these festivals eventually had to be banned or dramatically reformed to prevent them from literally tearing apart the societies that created them. This is the investigation into how ancient communities developed festival traditions that began as religious celebrations or seasonal observances, but gradually evolved into massive displays of collective madness, featuring violence, destruction, sexual excess, and social disorder on such a scale that they threatened the very foundations of civilization and created legendary spectacles of human chaos that were eventually deemed too dangerous for any society to tolerate. Today, we explore the historical chronicles, government records, and eyewitness accounts that document these extraordinary festivals of mass disorder, revealing how entire populations could be transformed into frenzied mobs engaged in activities that destroyed property, injured thousands of participants, and created such complete social breakdown that authorities were forced to intervene with military force to restore basic order and prevent total societal collapse. Our investigation begins with the ancient Roman festival of Saturnalia, which started as a modest religious observance honoring the god Saturn, but gradually evolved into a week-long period of absolute social chaos where slaves commanded their masters, laws were ignored, and the entire Roman Empire descended into a state of organized anarchy that threatened the fundamental structures of imperial authority and social control. Roman historical records describe how Saturnalia began each December 17th with traditional religious ceremonies, but quickly degenerated into massive public orgies, widespread gambling, excessive drinking, and complete reversal of social hierarchies that turned the ordered Roman world completely upside down for an entire week of sanctioned mayhem. Contemporary accounts reveal how during Saturnalia, Roman citizens engaged in behaviors that would normally result in imprisonment or execution, including public nudity, violent assault, destruction of property, and elaborate pranks that often resulted in serious injuries or death for unsuspecting victims caught up in the festival's chaotic atmosphere. The social disruption caused by Saturnalia became so extreme that Roman authorities repeatedly attempted to limit the festival's duration and scope, but these efforts were largely unsuccessful because the celebration had become so deeply embedded in Roman culture that any attempt to restrict it resulted in popular uprisings that were often more dangerous than the festival itself. Archaeological evidence from Roman sites shows extensive damage to public buildings, temples, and private homes that occurred during Saturnalia celebrations, with broken pottery, damaged walls, and destroyed furnishings providing physical testimony to the destructive power of mass celebration gone completely out of control. Moving to medieval Europe, we encounter the extraordinary Festival of Fools, which began as a church-sanctioned celebration that allowed lower clergy to mock their superiors but evolved into a massive carnival of blasphemy, violence, and social disorder that turned entire cathedral towns into scenes of religious and social chaos. Medieval church records describe how the Festival of Fools featured the election of a mock bishop or pope who would lead elaborate parodies of religious ceremonies, complete with obscene songs, blasphemous rituals, and deliberate corruption of sacred practices that horrified religious authorities, but delighted participants who saw it as sanctioned rebellion against ecclesiastical authority. Contemporary chronicles reveal how Festival of Fools celebrations included massive food fights using consecrated bread, mock religious processions featuring grotesque costumes and obscene behavior, and elaborate theatrical performances that mocked religious doctrine while encouraging participants to engage in increasingly extreme and sacrilegious activities. The chaos generated by the Festival of Fools became so disruptive that many medieval towns experienced complete breakdown of civil authority during the celebrations, with participants destroying church property, attacking clergy, and engaging in violent confrontations that sometimes resulted in multiple deaths and extensive property damage. Church authorities repeatedly attempted to suppress the Festival of Fools throughout the medieval period, issuing papal bulls and episcopal decrees condemning the celebration. But these efforts were largely ineffective because the festival provided such a powerful outlet for social tensions that banning often resulted in even more destructive forms of popular rebellion. In ancient Greece, we find the extraordinary Dionysiac festivals, which began as religious celebrations honoring the god of wine, but evolved into massive displays of collective intoxication, sexual excess, and violent behavior that became so destructive they were eventually banned by the Roman Senate as threats to public order and moral authority. Greek historical texts describe how Dionysiac festivals featured massive consumption of wine mixed with various psychoactive substances, leading to states of collective intoxication that removed all social inhibitions and resulted in behavior that even the relatively permissive Greeks found shocking and dangerous. Archaeological evidence from Greek festival sites reveals extensive evidence of violence and destruction associated with Dionysiac celebrations, including damaged buildings, broken sculptures, and human remains showing signs of violent death that occurred during these chaotic religious gatherings. The Roman Senate's investigation into Dionysiac festivals in 186 BC revealed evidence of conspiracy, murder, fraud, and various other criminal activities that had become integrated into the celebrations, leading to mass arrests, executions, and the complete prohibition of these festivals throughout the Roman territories. Medieval European carnival traditions, particularly in cities like Venice and Florence, developed into massive festivals of disorder that lasted for months and featured elaborate masks that allowed participants to engage in criminal behavior without fear of identification or punishment, creating extended periods of sanctioned lawlessness. Italian civic records describe how carnival celebrations regularly featured massive street brawls, destruction of public monuments, widespread theft, and elaborate practical jokes that often resulted in serious injuries or death for victims who became targets of masked revelers operating with complete impunity during the festival period. The economic disruption caused by extended carnival celebrations became so severe that many Italian city-states were forced to impose strict regulations limiting the duration and scope of these festivals, as the combination of widespread lawlessness and suspended commercial activity threatened to destroy local economies. Archaeological investigations of medieval carnival sites have revealed extensive evidence of violence and destruction, including weapons caches, damaged buildings, and human remains that demonstrate the deadly serious nature of what were supposedly light-hearted celebrations, but often resembled military conflicts more than festive occasions. The ancient Celtic festival of Beltane evolved into a massive celebration of fertility that featured ritualized violence, sexual excess, and dangerous fire ceremonies that regularly resulted in serious burns, injuries, and deaths among participants who engaged in increasingly extreme behaviors designed to ensure agricultural and human fertility. Celtic historical traditions describe Beltane celebrations that included leaping over massive bonfires, ritualized combat between community members, and elaborate fertility ceremonies that often involved dangerous practices, including consumption of hallucinogenic substances and participation in violent initiation rituals. Archaeological evidence from Celtic festival sites shows extensive burn damage, weapons remains, and human bones with evidence of violent death that occurred during Beltane celebrations, demonstrating how these fertility festivals regularly claimed lives among participants who engaged in dangerous rituals believed necessary for ensuring community survival. The Hindu festival of Holi, while still celebrated today in modified form, originally featured such extreme behavior that British colonial authorities repeatedly attempted to suppress it due to the massive violence, property destruction, and social disorder that accompanied the traditional throwing of colored powders and water. Colonial records describe Holi celebrations that included massive street battles using not just colored powders but stones, sticks, and other weapons, resulting in numerous deaths and injuries among participants who used the festival as an excuse to settle personal grievances through violent confrontation. The social disruption caused by traditional Holi celebrations became so extreme that many Indian cities experienced complete breakdown of civil authority during the festival, with participants destroying property, attacking authority figures, and engaging in behavior that threatened the basic functioning of local government and commerce. Modern anthropological research has revealed that many traditional festivals around the world originally featured elements of sanctioned violence, property destruction, and social disorder that were gradually eliminated or modified as societies developed more sophisticated methods for managing social tensions and maintaining public order. The decline of these chaotic festival traditions reflects broader changes in human civilization, including the development of professional police forces, more effective legal systems, and social institutions capable of managing conflict and tension without requiring periodic explosions of collective violence and disorder. As we examine the historical records, archaeological evidence, and contemporary accounts that document these extraordinary festivals of mass chaos, we discover how human societies throughout history have struggled with the fundamental tension between the need for social order and the equally powerful human need for periodic release from the constraints of civilization, leading to the creation of elaborate cultural mechanisms that allowed entire communities to engage in temporarily sanctioned madness that provided emotional outlet while ultimately threatening the very societies that created these spectacular displays of collective human chaos.